In Australia, the ruling centre-left Labor Party of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has won the national election. The tightly fought election campaign was dominated by concerns over the rising cost of living, a worsening housing crisis, and global uncertainty. Albanese is the first Prime Minister to win consecutive parliamentary elections in more than 20 years. Albanese thanked Australians as he claimed victory at the Labor Party's headquarters in Sydney.
Today, the Australian people have voted for Australian values. For fairness, aspiration and opportunity for all. For the strength to show courage in adversity and kindness to those in need.
Well, meanwhile, Australia's opposition leader Peter Dutton not only lost the election, but also his own seat. Here's what he had to say during his concession speech.
Now, we didn't do well enough during this campaign. That much is obvious tonight, and I accept full responsibility for that. Earlier on, I called the Prime Minister to congratulate him on his success tonight. It's an historic occasion for the Labor Party, and we recognise that.
And DW reporter Jared Reid is here with me in the studio for more on the Australian election result. Jared, good to see you. All right, so the centre-left incumbent Labor government is going to return to office. What does their win tell us about what the public makes of their performance?
I think it tells us a lot because we have to say the Labor Party today has won in a pretty surprising landslide. Just a couple of months ago at the beginning of the year, they really were struggling in the polls and it looked like that they might not win today, and that has turned out not to be the case. And I think some of the chaos of the Trump effect has worked in the Labor Party's favour. It's been able to go out to the public and say and highlight how important stability and continuity are. That's one factor. But I think that they have run a very good campaign that really tapped into a lot of voter concerns around what has been a really big jump in the cost of living in Australia and the key crisis of housing unaffordability. It seems what they had to offer the public resonated more today and has given the opposition, I think, a record low primary vote.
Well, let's talk about the opposition for a minute. How are they framing their loss? Was it a question of coming to the public with the wrong policies, or did they just not run a good election campaign?
Yes, I think that's definitely part of it. They are going to be doing a lot of soul-searching and analysis in the weeks and months and years to come. And we heard from Peter Dutton, the opposition leader who has lost his own seat, saying that he accepts defeat and that he accepts responsibility. But it has to be said that the Liberal Party ran a pretty lacklustre campaign. They made a lot of mistakes. Some of the policies that they put forward, they were accused of being too ideologically similar to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And I think that turned a lot of Australians off. There was a lot of criticism too of the lack of specifics about their policies. They wanted to, they pledged to boost the economy, boost productivity, lower inflation, but didn't really offer policies that looked like that would achieve that. And that is a key criticism of what they had to offer, that there was a lack of specifics in the campaign and that they didn't sufficiently tell Australians how much things were going to cost. And added to the mix of that is the rise of what's known as the Teals. So these are a group of environmentally and socially progressive independent women who are also economically more conservative, and they have managed to take a lot of votes, centre-right votes, from the Liberal Party, particularly in inner city seats. So I think that some of that explains how the opposition has performed so poorly today.
And Jared, what about the broader implications of this election win? How does it position Australia on the international stage?
I think in a number of ways, right? So we talked about the Donald Trump effect and how it's a bit similar to what we've seen from Canada this week. I think the Labor Party has been able to go out and say to Australians that electing an opposition in a time of turbulence is a risky thing to do, and Australians have decided not to take that risk. When it comes to climate, the opposition was criticised for plans to introduce nuclear power, whereas the Labor government has been seen as more progressive on that, though it has been criticised for granting subsidies to the fossil fuel industry and more mining licences. That's one aspect, but one key part of this is also China. Relations between China and Australia were very bad for some time, and they have stabilised under the Albanese government. And that's important because China is Australia's largest trading partner.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. DW's Jared Reid, always great to speak to you.
Thank you.
And for the latest, we can now speak to journalist Mark Tilley, who joins us from Melbourne. So, Mark, the centre-left incumbent Labor government is to return to office. So what does their win tell us about public satisfaction with Labor's performance?
Hi, Mariana. Well, only a few months ago, the government's electoral chances were not looking good, opinion polling-wise. Like many countries globally, Australia was facing high inflation, and the Labor government only recently managed to reduce inflation, and the Reserve Bank only just delivered its first interest rate cut in quite some time. I think, similarly to Canada, the Labor Party emphasised the importance of stability in the broader geopolitical context of US President Donald Trump. And the chaos that we've seen from the US has definitely worked in Labor's favour. This was very much a cost of living focused election, and the policy offerings that the Labor Party offered, including reducing student debt and expanded healthcare, very much played to their strengths. They've campaigned hard on cost of living measures, and they've acknowledged they've got more work to do. But it has also historically been very challenging for an opposition to unseat an incumbent government in Australia after one term.
Well, what about the opposition? Just how is the opposition framing its loss? Did it have to do with policy, or was their campaign strategy just not good enough?
I think at this time they're still digesting the significance of the loss. Obviously, as you saw previously, the coalition leader Peter Dutton has just lost his seat. So I think there's quite a bit of shock about how much the tide has turned against them electorally. At the same time, the coalition ran what many have described as one of the worst election campaigns in living memory. There were a lot of policies that they put forward that lacked a lot of detail, including their proposal to pursue nuclear energy, while other efforts, such as to stop public servants from working from home, were seen as deeply unpopular, and they were forced to walk that policy proposal back. So there's a multitude of factors, I think, at play there.
And Mark, what about the broader implications of the centre-left government being re-elected? How does this election result position Australia on the international stage?
I think there would be similar comparisons to Canada and the result that we saw there over the weekend. I think on issues such as climate, for example, Australia would be seen as much more progressive and ambitious in that front. The coalition were unclear on what their international emissions reduction targets would be, for example, whereas the Labor government has promised to renew those targets, and also they are planning to host the international COP climate talks in Australia next year. So at least in that respect, on the international stage, a returning Labor government will be seen as a positive.
That was journalist Mark Tilley in Melbourne, Australia. Mark, many thanks indeed for your reporting.
Thank you very much, Mariana.